You've noticed it your entire life, but never said it out loud because it sounds strange. Babies lock eyes with you in grocery stores, on buses, in waiting rooms, and they won't look away. Dogs cross entire parks to sit at your feet. Cats that hide from everyone else crawl into your lap within minutes. Strangers' toddlers reach for you while ignoring everyone else in the room. And animals that their owners describe as aggressive or skittish become calm the moment you're near. You've probably dismissed this as coincidence, or told yourself you're reading too much into it. But Carl Jung would tell you that you're not imagining anything. He spent decades studying a specific quality that certain people carry. A quality he linked directly to the psychology of true empaths, and he discovered that this quality is perceptible not just to other humans, but to any creature operating on instinct rather than social performance. Babies and animals aren't responding to your personality, your appearance, or your behavior. They're responding to something you carry in your energy field that most adults have been trained to ignore. Today I'm going to show you what Jung actually discovered about this phenomenon, why babies and animals can perceive what most adults cannot, what this reveals about the empath's psychological and energetic structure, and why understanding this changes how you relate to your own sensitivity forever. Jung's investigation into what he eventually described as the empath's field of presence started not with babies or animals, but with a pattern he kept noticing among his most psychologically sensitive patients. These patients reported the same strange experiences over and over. Children gravitated toward them. Animals behaved differently around them. Even plants seemed to respond to their presence, though Jung was cautious about that particular claim. What interested him wasn't whether these reports were literally true in every case. What interested him was the consistency of the pattern and what it revealed about the empath's psychological structure. Jung had already established that the psyche radiates outward. He understood that consciousness isn't contained neatly inside the skull. It extends into the environment through what he described as the personal atmosphere, the totality of someone's conscious and unconscious psychological energy as it's expressed through presence. Every person walks into a room carrying this atmosphere, and other people respond to it constantly, though usually without knowing why. You've felt this yourself. Someone enters a space and the room changes. The energy shifts. You feel something different, even though nothing visible happened. That's the personal atmosphere Jung documented. But Jung found that empaths carry a radically different kind of personal atmosphere than most people, and the difference comes down to something specific. Most adults have constructed what Jung called the persona, a carefully managed psychological mask that filters what gets expressed outward. The persona controls what others perceive. It manages impressions. It creates the social performance that adult interaction requires. When you meet someone at a dinner party and they seem charming and confident, you're interacting with their persona, not with them. The persona is a barrier between their authentic psychological energy and the outside world. Empaths, Jung discovered, have a fundamentally compromised persona, not broken in a pathological sense, compromised in a structural sense. Their mask is thinner. Their filter is more porous. What radiates outward from an empath is far less managed, far less controlled, far closer to their authentic unconscious energy than what radiates from people with thick, well-constructed personas. This is the key to understanding why babies and animals respond to empaths differently. Babies haven't developed a persona yet. They're operating on pure instinctual perception, reading the energy field of everyone around them without the cognitive filters that adults use to override instinct with social convention. A baby doesn't care about your job title, your clothing, or your facial expression. A baby perceives the quality of your energy directly. And when that energy is unfiltered, authentic, and emotionally congruent, which is what the empath's thin persona allows, the baby recognizes something safe, something real, something that matches their own unfiltered state of being. Think about what a baby encounters in most adults. The adult's persona is fully operational. They're projecting confidence they don't feel, warmth they're performing, stability they're faking. The baby's instinctual perception registers the incongruence. The surface says one thing, the energy says another. This doesn't necessarily frighten the baby, but it doesn't attract them either. There's nothing to lock onto because what's being presented isn't real. Then the empath walks in, their persona is thin. What's radiating outward is close to what's actually happening inside them. If they feel gentle, gentleness radiates. If they feel present, presence radiates. The baby's instinct encounters congruence. The outside matches the inside and locks on. Not because the empath is performing warmth, because they're not performing at all. And in a world full of performances, authenticity is magnetically rare. Jung found the same mechanism explains animal behavior. Animals operate almost entirely on instinct and energy perception. A dog doesn't understand your words. It reads your nervous system. It perceives the electromagnetic and chemical signals your body produces, your heart rate variability, your cortisol levels, your muscular tension, the subtle shifts in your biofield that communicate emotional state more accurately than language ever could. Most adults approach animals while carrying enormous amounts of unconscious tension, emotional incongruence, and persona management. The dog perceives a human whose energy is saying 17 different things simultaneously. Anxiety masked by forced calm. Desire to connect wrapped in fear of rejection. Warmth on the surface with rigidity underneath. The animal's instinct registers this as confusing at best, threatening at worst. So the dog stays wary, maintains distance, or becomes agitated. The empath approaches carrying something different. Their thin persona means their energy is more unified. What they feel is closer to what they project. Their nervous system, though often activated by sensitivity, tends to broadcast a coherent signal rather than a contradictory one. The dog's instinct encounters a human whose energy makes sense, whose inside matches their outside. And the animal relaxes, approaches, seeks contact. Not because the empath is calm, empaths are often anxious, but because whatever the empath is feeling, they're feeling it authentically. The signal is clean even when it's intense. Jung described this as energetic coherence. The empath's field doesn't lie. And in a world where almost every adult's energy field is layered with deception, not malicious deception, just the ordinary dishonesty of persona management, the empath's coherent field stands out like a lighthouse to any creature perceiving energy directly. This explains something else empaths report. It's not just that animals and babies are drawn to them. It's that the most frightened, most wounded, most skittish creatures respond to them. The rescue dog that won't let anyone touch it walks over to the empath. The baby who screams when held by anyone else calms in the empath's arms. The feral cat that hasn't approached a human in years rubs against the empath's leg. Jung understood why. Wounded creatures are the most sensitive energy readers. Their survival has depended on accurately assessing threat versus safety. They've learned through pain that surfaces lie, that a hand extended kindly can strike, that a calm voice can precede violence. So they've stopped trusting surface behavior entirely and rely only on energy perception. And when they encounter the empath's coherent, unmasked field, they recognize something their instinct has been searching for. A being whose energy can be trusted because it isn't hiding anything. This mirrors the empath's own developmental history. Jung found that most empaths developed their thin persona in childhood environments where they needed to read energy accurately to survive. The child of an unpredictable parent learns to perceive beneath surfaces because surfaces were unreliable. That child develops extraordinary sensitivity to energetic incongruence in others, and simultaneously develops a thinner persona themselves, because maintaining a thick mask requires psychological resources that the hypervigilant child couldn't spare. So, the empath and the wounded animal share something fundamental. Both developed heightened energy perception through unsafe environments. Both learn that surfaces lie and only energy tells the truth. And when they meet, they recognize each other. The wounded dog sees in the empath someone whose energy doesn't lie. The empath sees in the wounded dog a creature whose perception works like theirs. It's mutual recognition between beings who've both been forced to develop the same survival skill. Before we continue, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises inspired by the teachings of Carl Jung, designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. But Jung's observations went deeper than just explaining the attraction. He found that this phenomenon reveals something crucial about the empath's psychological structure that most empaths completely misunderstand. The thin persona that makes babies and animals respond to you isn't just a charming quirk. It's the source of both your greatest gift and your most devastating vulnerability. Your thin persona means you broadcast authentically. That's the gift. But it also means you broadcast constantly. You're leaking psychological energy into your environment all the time because you lack the containment structure that thicker personas provide. Every emotion you feel radiates outward. Every shift in your internal state becomes perceptible to anyone sensitive enough to notice. You're an open signal in a world of encrypted transmissions. This is why empaths get drained in crowds. It's not just that you're absorbing others' energy, though that happens too. It's that you're broadcasting yours without restriction. Your field is wide open, pouring your authentic emotional energy into the environment, and everyone in proximity is unconsciously receiving it. Babies and animals respond positively because your signal is coherent and authentic. But energy vampires, narcissists, and unconscious people respond to it too, because your open broadcast tells them exactly what you're feeling and makes you extraordinarily easy to manipulate. Jung recognized this as the empath's central paradox. The very quality that makes you safe for babies and animals makes you a target for predatory humans. Your authenticity attracts both the innocent and the dangerous. Your coherent field draws both the wounded seeking genuine safety and the manipulative seeking easy supply. Because you can't broadcast selectively, your thin persona doesn't discriminate. It radiates to everything and everyone equally. This is where Jung's framework becomes essential. He didn't tell empaths to thicken their persona. That would destroy the very quality that makes them extraordinary. A thick persona would stop the animals from coming, stop the babies from staring, and stop the genuine connections that feed the empath's soul. But he also recognized that broadcasting without any containment was destroying empaths through constant energy depletion and vulnerability to exploitation. What Jung proposed was something more nuanced than boundaries. He described it as conscious field management, not building walls, not constructing a persona, but developing the ability to modulate the intensity and range of your broadcast consciously, rather than leaving it permanently open. Think of it as the difference between a light bulb that's always on maximum brightness and one with a dimmer switch. The light is still authentic. It's still your light, but you control how much fills the room and when. This practice required empaths to develop something Jung called introverted awareness, the capacity to direct attention inward and consciously gather their energy field closer to their body, rather than allowing it to radiate outward without limit. Not suppression, not hiding, gathering, the way you might draw a shawl around yourself in cold weather. Your warmth is still yours. You're just choosing to keep more of it close. Jung found that empaths who developed this skill experienced something remarkable. They could still connect deeply with babies, animals, and sensitive beings when they chose to. They could still radiate the coherent, authentic energy that drew these connections. But they stopped hemorrhaging energy in every environment. They stopped broadcasting their emotional state to every person in proximity. They became selective broadcasters rather than permanent open signals. And here's what fascinated Jung most. When empaths learned conscious field management, the quality of their connections actually deepened. Because they weren't approaching every interaction already depleted. They had energy reserves. They could choose to open their field fully with a trusted person or a frightened animal and give that connection their complete presence rather than the exhausted remnants of a field that had been leaking all day. The babies still stared, the animals still came. But now the empath wasn't destroyed by the same sensitivity that created these connections. They'd learned to honor the gift without being consumed by it. Jung also discovered something about what the empath's field actually communicates that goes beyond simple authenticity. He found that empaths broadcast what he called the quality of witnessed suffering. Not suffering itself, not pain or sadness, but the specific energy signature of a being who has suffered deeply and remained open rather than closing down. This is extraordinarily rare. Most beings who suffer develop thick defenses. They wall off. They harden. Their persona thickens in proportion to their pain. But empaths suffered and stayed porous. They were wounded and kept their hearts open. They experienced pain that should have closed them and somehow didn't. This quality, suffered but still open, is what animals and babies perceive most acutely. It signals something profound to a creature reading energy. It says, this being understands danger and isn't pretending it doesn't exist. This being has been hurt and hasn't become hurtful. This being knows pain and still chooses gentleness. For a wounded animal, this is the only energy that feels genuinely safe. Not the energy of someone who's never been hurt. That reads as naive, unpredictable, potentially dangerous because untested. But the energy of someone who has been hurt and remained kind. That reads as trustworthy in a way nothing else can. Jung believed this quality was related to what he called the wounded healer archetype, the understanding that the deepest capacity for holding space comes not from those who've been spared suffering, but from those who've been broken by it and chose to remain open. The empath's aura, as it's often called, isn't some mystical energy. It's the radiation of integrated suffering. It's the field effect of a psyche that metabolized pain into presence instead of armor. This reframes the entire experience for empaths. The reason babies and animals stare at you isn't because you're special in some hierarchical sense. It's because you carry something earned through your most painful experiences. Your sensitivity, your wounding, your inability to fully close off. These aren't defects. They're what created the coherent, authentic, trustworthy field that innocent and wounded beings can sense across a room. Every time a baby locks eyes with you and won't look away, they're perceiving the real you. Not your job, not your appearance, not your social performance, but the actual quality of your presence. And they're telling you something you desperately need to hear. What you carry is real. Your energy is perceptible. Your authenticity matters. In a world that rewards performance, you are being recognized by the only beings honest enough to perceive what's actually there. Jung would want empaths to understand what this recognition actually means. It means your sensitivity isn't a disorder. Your inability to maintain thick masks isn't dysfunction. Your porousness isn't weakness. These qualities create a field of presence so authentic that it's recognized by beings who haven't yet learned to ignore the truth of what they perceive. Babies haven't been taught to override their instinct. Animals never learn to. And both respond to you because you're the realest thing in their environment. But Jung would also want you to understand the responsibility this carries. Not responsibility to others, though that matters. Responsibility to yourself. If your field is powerful enough to calm a frightened animal, it's powerful enough to be exploited by a manipulative human. If your energy is coherent enough to draw a baby's gaze, it's coherent enough to be drained by someone who feeds on authentic emotional energy. The same gift that makes you extraordinary makes you vulnerable. And honoring that gift means learning to protect it. Not by hiding it, not by building the thick persona that would muffle everything special about your presence, but by developing the conscious awareness to know when to radiate fully and when to gather your field close. By learning to recognize the difference between a wounded being seeking genuine safety and a predatory being seeking your energy. By trusting that the same perception that babies and animals activate in your presence is available to you too. If you stop overriding it with social conditioning that tells you to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Your field perception works both ways. The same thin persona that broadcasts your authentic energy also receives authentic information about others' energy. You can feel when someone is safe and when they're not. You can sense when connection is genuine and when it's extractive. You already know these things. You've always known them. You've just been taught to dismiss what you perceive because it isn't rational or provable or polite. Jung spent his career demonstrating that the information empaths receive through their field perception is real, reliable, and essential for their survival. Stop dismissing it. The baby staring at you is proof that energy perception exists. If a 3-month-old can read your field accurately enough to choose you out of a room full of people, then your ability to read others' fields is equally real. Trust it the way that baby trusts theirs, completely, instinctively, without needing anyone else to confirm what you already know. This is what Jung ultimately understood about the empath's aura. It's not mystical. It's not supernatural. It's the natural radiation of a psyche that developed extraordinary sensitivity, remained authentic despite pain, and broadcasts a coherent signal in a world of noise. Babies perceive it because they haven't learned to ignore it. Animals perceive it because they were never taught to. And you carry it because everything you've survived made you incapable of being fake, even when being fake would have been easier. That inability to be fake, that thin persona, that constant authentic broadcast, it's the most valuable thing about you. It's what makes you capable of connections that most people will never experience. It's what draws the innocent and the wounded to your presence. It's what makes you feel everything so deeply that some days you can barely function. And it's what Jung recognized as genuine psychological power when he saw it in his most sensitive patients. Not weakness dressed up as strength, but actual strength born from remaining open in a world that rewards closing down. The next time a baby stares at you from across a room, don't look away. Don't dismiss it. Recognize what's happening. A being with uncorrupted perception is telling you that what you carry is real, visible, and powerful. They're seeing you, the actual you, and they're drawn to what they see. Let that be the mirror you've needed. Let it remind you that your sensitivity isn't something to overcome. It's something to honor, protect, and use with the same instinctive wisdom that the baby is showing you right now. If you haven't yet, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises inspired by the teachings of Carl Jung, designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery.